Okay, the stream on YouTube is already live and we'll get started in 2 minutes. Well, 3 minutes. People are joining in. We'll get started in about 1.5 minutes.
What? People who join in will start in 1.5 minutes? Or you will start at 1.5 minutes?
Okay, welcome everyone to this special session on EasyBuild. Yesterday, November 13th, was exactly 10 years ago that we published EasyBuild 1.0. And I didn't want to let this pass without doing something special. So here we go. So the purpose for this talk is to look back a bit at the previous decade. Where do we come from? How did EasyBuild actually came to be? I'll go through a couple of major EasyBuild features that you should know about and hopefully know about already. And if not, you really should look into them. A bit about the EasyBuild community and the lessons we've learned throughout the years. And then also looking forward, so what are we currently working on? What is coming really soon? And also some exciting opportunities that we see ahead for EasyBuild and related projects. And then at the end, there'll be a nice surprise as well. So over a decade of EasyBuild, it's actually over the decade because if we look before EasyBuild 1.0, it was already there. The first public release of EasyBuild was 0.5 in April 2012. And before that, there was a lot of in-house development. 10 years is a long time. And over those 10 years, we've gone through different eras or different phases. So the first part was definitely the in-house development where nobody outside of our team and the Flemish Supercomputing Center knew about EasyBuild. At some point, we did the public release, 2012. We started getting first users outside of our team, getting lots of feedback, doing some promotion. That kickstarted the EasyBuild community. So that's the third era. And then we matured the project a bit and had a big spike in the number of supported software packages. In 3.0, we added support for specific features like RPath and hooks. And that was also the start of the EasyBuild maintainers team. And then EasyBuild 4.x, what we're currently playing with, is the first EasyBuild version that was compatible with Python 3 was EasyBuild 4.0. And from then on, lots of enhancements and updates, software updates have been added, of course. So that's a lot of releases. We're getting close to having 100 EasyBuild releases quite soon. Maybe in 2023, we will hit that. So that's a lot of work that has gone into this. EasyBuild started in-house mainly to scratch our own itch, so to deal with the problems that we were having as a new HPC team. So the team was really started in 2008, and our first central supercomputer at Ghent University was installed 2009. And pretty quickly, it was clear that dealing with incoming software installation requests was going to be a big problem. The manpower back then was very limited. It was 2 technical people and a manager. And they had to do everything basically from the hardware problems to the system administration, OS updates, and also the user support and providing software installations to the researchers. That was going to be impossible if everything had to be done by hand, which is apparently what lots of other teams were doing. And so we wanted to do, or we had to automate that effort a bit. Now we didn't really knew what we were doing. Initially, we didn't have a lot of experience with software development, let alone publishing open source software, and we sort of learned things on the go. And yeah, you can definitely see that throughout the years. What made a big difference is that we had a couple of very good student interns who helped a lot with even redesigning EasyBuild a couple of times from scratch, essentially just pulling things apart, putting it back together in a better way. We had students learning us about tests and why we need tests. We didn't have any tests at all. We figured we didn't need any because we knew the code base quite well. But they showed us that just by writing tests, you can very quickly find bugs and fix them. They also helped out with developing a couple of features and so on. So the original code base was so bad that the PyLint code style checker gave a negative score. So it gives you like a score from 0 to 10 or something. And if it's really, really bad, it goes below 0. So initially the code was way below 0, and the students helped us a lot by cleaning it up and improving it. But just for some context, this was back with Scientific Linux 5, Python 2.4. So this is a very long time ago. At some point, we started to wonder if this could be useful also to other people. So it looked like it was working for us pretty well, and we couldn't find solutions out there that other people were using. So we figured maybe this could help others as well. So we wanted to make it available, mostly to get feedback, because we still felt that maybe we were missing something. Maybe other people were using this fantastic tool that solves all your problems when installing software, and they were not telling others about it. I don't know. And before we could do that, we needed a logo. So we started playing around with some ideas, which you can see on the slide. And in the end, we drew something on a whiteboard after having a couple of beers, which looked like a good idea. And then literally this screenshot or this picture of the logo on the whiteboard became our final logo. And it has served us well over the last decade. So then in 2012, we were finally ready. We were confident enough about the code base to make it available publicly, so we did. We created a GitHub repository in March 2012. So switching away from our private SVN repository. And we quickly figured it was a good idea to split up things across 4 different repositories. As you know, framework, EasyBlocks, EasyConfigs, and also the documentation. Then we did a release, or at least we tagged the version in our GitHub repository in April 2012. This was very, very early. It was like, again, a cleaned up version of our internal code base, and all it supported was building HPL with what was then called the GoAlf toolchain. So GCC, OpenAPI, Atlas, Laypack, and FFTW. So you can only build HPL with it, nothing else. There was some documentation on the wiki page, but we only copy pasted some stuff from our internal documentation. It was not very user friendly. And there was not even an EB command yet. So there was a script that did some stuff, but there was nothing as clean as an EP command. So the screenshot shows how the repository looked back then. It looks pretty empty. Everything is, of course, in the EasyBuild directory. But it's very different from what it is today. So it was about 6,000 lines of Python code, 23 easy config files, and 9 easy blocks. That was it. So a very lightweight first release. Then the main reason to push out that release is because we got a talk accepted at the HPX Spring Workshop. So HPX is a high energy physics conference about EasyBuild. And of course, we wanted to have some code to show to whoever was interested. I found the slides, and I didn't actually do this talk. This was a colleague back then, Jens Timmerman, who gave the actual talk. The slides are still available, so here's some screenshots. We mentioned that we had support for over 250 software packages already back then, but we didn't actually include all that code in EasyBuild 0.5 yet. We were still cleaning things up and putting it in the public release. Pretty shortly after doing that, we got some feedback on the EasyBuild IRC channel, where people were saying, oh, we're reinventing what Gentoo has done with prefix, and yeah, why are you actually doing that? That doesn't make sense. So they didn't really understand what we were doing or why we were doing it the way we were doing it. But at least we were getting feedback, so that was good. We then also made the EasyBuild mailing list public, and the first person to actually subscribe to it outside of the HPC-UGent team, or at least the Flemish HPC side, was Fotis, who was then, I think, working in Cyprus at the Cyprus Institute. So he noticed probably the talk at HPX and was looking for a tool like this. And he was really the first person outside of our team who picked it up. Now the mailing list has about 300 subscribers, but most of the activity in terms of discussions and asking questions is actually going on the EasyBuild Slack, which has over 670 members. So that's quite good. Then still that same year, we wanted to make EasyBuild stable in the sense that we froze the EasyBuild framework API. So if people were developing their own easy blocks for it, we could give them some kind of guarantee that things wouldn't break over and over again with every EasyBuild release. So we gave some certainty about it being stable. Now, the EasyBuild release 1.0 itself was done on November 13th, and this was hours before it was going to be presented at the HPC workshop at Supercomputing 2012. And the paper and the slides of that are still available. So this included support for 148 software packages, about 21,000 lines of code, 76 easy blocks, and 300 something easy configs. And the feedback we got from this was pretty positive. So people, some people like the Andy Jarrell, where I showed the tweets of, is saying that this is the best thing he'll take, or the coolest thing he'll take home from supercomputing. And that was a very nice feedback. So people seem to be happy, and we seem to have found a hole in the market where nobody else was working on a tool like this, which is good. And of course, this motivated us to continue with the development and making sure that whatever we could share publicly was being shared publicly. And this really started the EasyBuild community. So more and more people started picking up on EasyBuild and started to use it, not only use it, but also actively helping out with fixing bugs or adding support for more software, adding features, and so on. We also started organizing hackathons where we wanted to brainstorm about EasyBuild, like what should it be able to do, how can we implement this, where should the focus be, and how to make it bigger, make it make it support more software and so on. Shortly after, we also set up the now well-known EasyBuild conference calls. Every 2 weeks, we have an EasyBuild conference call. Anyone is welcome to join in. We usually discuss recent developments, and usually we have some time for questions and providing some answers as well. And it's very rare that we actually skip one of these calls, so you can rely on them being there if you need any help with EasyBuild. We also looked into other ways of promoting EasyBuild a bit indirectly. So we proposed getting scientific software installed birds of a feather sessions at both supercomputing and ISC, where of course we wanted to give ourselves a platform to promote EasyBuild a bit more and on a more regular basis. But we also looked at other tools related. So LMOD was being discussed there as well. We also invited Todd Gamblin when SPAC was created to talk about SPAC at these sessions and so on. So we were very open to also promoting other tools and making it very clear that we are not the only ones in this space. Also, the dev rooms at FOSDEM, the HPC dev rooms, were initially created sort of to have an excuse to also be able to present EasyBuild at FOSDEM. But these dev rooms have been going on pretty much continuously since 2014 and have been quite successful as well. Then later, we started doing EasyBuild user meetings. So basically stepping away from the hackathon model and going more towards user meetings. And related to those user meetings, we also did user surveys on a yearly basis since 2017 to get a better view on the EasyBuild community. So how people were using EasyBuild, what do they find important, on what type of systems they're using it, and so on. Then more recently, we finally got a tutorial accepted at ISC. We tried multiple times, and the COVID year 2020 was the first time we actually got the tutorial accepted. The tutorials were actually cancelled at that year at ISC due to the pandemic, and it only ended up being presented in 2021. But we did get our foot in the door there, and also this year we had a tutorial there, and we hope to have one next year as well. Now, one thing that's very difficult when doing open source software is to get a good view on how many people, how many HPC sites are using it. Since everyone can just pull it down from the web and doesn't have to tell you that they're playing with it, you don't really know who's using it. So the best way we've come up with is looking at the visits to the EasyBuild documentation, where you can at least see from which cities people are accessing the documentation and how frequently they're doing that. So the screenshot of the world map shows you the cities from where EasyBuild was visited in the last year and how many times. So the bigger the sphere, the more it was visited. And currently we have over 1,000 page views per week in the EasyBuild documentation. So that's definitely not bad. It's getting lots of reads. The logos at the bottom show you some of the bigger or more active sites that are using EasyBuild today, but it goes way beyond these universities and these institutes, of course. So then back to the hackathons. People who picked up EasyBuild early on also were very keen in getting involved with development. Fotis was definitely very active there in the early years of EasyBuild and actively helped out with setting up these events. The first one was actually organized in Ghent itself, and the only outside visitor was Fotis. So he came in, I think, from Luxembourg, and yeah, just wanted to discuss with us what EasyBuild can currently do, and what we should work on next in terms of support and software packages. You can also see Todd Gamblin, so on the picture on the top right. Todd also joined us for a couple of these hackathons and to exchange ideas with stuff he was working on in SPAC and things we were working on in EasyBuild. And all of the notes and the slides from all of these hackathons are still available on the EasyBuild wiki. Then, of course, we also continue to do promotion about EasyBuild whenever we got the chance, and lots of other people did the same thing as well. Our Twitter account has been quite active over the years. We now have 666 followers, and I didn't game this in any way. There's also some interesting quotes in certain talks where George from the Cyprus Institute, for example, said that EasyBuild saved his life. So without it, it would be very difficult to do the work he's been doing. We handed out stickers, we handed out coffee mugs, and we will keep doing that whenever we see the chance as well. I've been interviewed for a podcast. We had EasyBuild cake at some point. So when there was 5 years, the 5-year celebration of EasyBuild 1.0 was celebrated at Supercomputing 2017. So somebody ordered cake with the EasyBuild logo on it, and that was lots of fun to see. And the picture on FOSDEM, so the middle, sort of bottom middle, is the first time that we had 7 EasyBuild maintainers in the same room. We actually have over 20 EasyBuild maintainers today, so maybe at some point we'll do better than that. Then the user meetings, so these kind of evolved from the hackathons, where we saw a bit of a shift into what people wanted to discuss or wanted to talk about at the hackathons. It was less of hands-on development and more discussions and showing each other how they are using EasyBuild or in what context and how it was configured and for what reason and so on. So this is what the user meetings still are today. These have actually been very well attended. So the first couple of user meetings had 20, 30 attendees. But the last physical one in Barcelona, early 2020, had over 50 people actively joining, with some people flying in from the US or Australia. So that's quite unexpected, I would say, and that's quite a good sign of the maturity of the EasyBuild community. What we've always done from the very start is, at the very least, record all these talks and also stream them. And all of these talks are still available on the EasyBuild YouTube channel. So we hope we can keep this up, and at the very least make this hybrid events where if people can't travel or don't have the time to make the trip, they can still follow along. Now, of course, the previous 2 sessions or the previous 2 events were fully virtual through Zoom and Slack due to the ongoing pandemic. But we think it's now safe enough again to have a physical EasyBuild user meeting again next year. And we are going to move away from winter time in Europe, just to hopefully avoid some of the trouble. So we're currently looking at April, May or something to organize the next meeting. Now, nothing is set in stone there. The date or the location is not fixed yet, so we're currently looking into this, but you'll hear about this soon. And of course, hopefully we will break the record of attendees, at least at the physical events. We'll see how that goes. Then looking at some of the major EasyBuild features that were developed over the years. So all of these are documented either in the EasyBuild documentation itself, or if not, they are covered in the EasyBuild tutorials. Of course, lots of features were implemented over the years in EasyBuild. A lot of these are driven by the community, either by suggestions or questions by people using EasyBuild, or quite often also people who actually implemented the features themselves and then sent us pull requests to get them integrated into EasyBuild itself. There's lots of examples here. I won't discuss all of these. But if you're not aware of some of these things on the list, they're definitely worth looking into. One of the major features that was implemented by people outside of the HPC-UGent team was support for hierarchical module naming schemes. So the Jülich Supercomputing Center was a big driving force behind this. Especially Marcus Geimer spent quite a bit of time on this during the early hackathons. So the intent is to organize your modules in a different way, that you have very short module names and that you can only load modules which are compatible with each other. So as the picture shows, you have a GCC module, and only if you load that GCC module, additional modules become available that are compatible with this version of GCC. And then the same thing for the MPI module. If you load a particular version of OpenMPI, then more software becomes available that is linked to this MPI library. And now this was a lot of effort to get right, because there's lots of tricky things to keep in mind here, and communication with LMOD or putting things in a certain way so LMOD is happy when consuming this module tree. So this was not easy to implement, but it was done in a way that you can actually define your own hierarchical module tree if you want to. So the classic one has 3 levels as shown in the picture: a core level, a compiler level, and an MPI level. but you can make this tree as deep as you want to with additional levels if you want to, as long as you're careful enough in the implementation of the naming scheme. So all you basically do here is you implement a small Python module that describes where the modules should go in the module tree, and then EasyBuild takes care of the rest. Then one of the key features in EasyBuild is definitely the integration we have with GitHub. So this was actually implemented out of need. We were starting to get too many contributions. There was not enough structure in the contributions. Many people wanted to contribute, but were not familiar enough with Git or GitHub. And to some extent, we still see this happening today. So we felt we had to do something about this. We wanted to avoid that people had to do all the commands to rename easyconfig files, put them in the right place, start a branch, push it to GitHub, and then go ahead in GitHub and open the pull request in the right way, targeting the develop branch and putting the right information in the PR title or the PR description. So we ended up automating that whole process, so you can straight from the EasyBuild command line open the pull request, and you don't have to give the file name the correct name or something. EasyBuild can figure out how it should be named and where it should be placed and so on. So this saves a lot of time, both for the contributor, but also for the EasyBuild maintainers who review the pull requests, because everything is very well structured. And we know there are certain things that we don't have to keep an eye out for, like the naming of the easyconfig files, the location, the target branch should be developed. All of this is taken care of automatically if the pull request is opened with new PR. So this was a big help. And next to new PR, there are various related features as well, like pulling easyconfig files from a pull request or uploading a test report when you're doing an installation from a pull request, updating pull requests. So there's lots of small variations or related actions here that you can do straight from the EasyBuild command line. And it has been a game changer, I think, in terms of getting contributions. Then a small thing, but I think a very useful thing, and maybe something we should even enable by default in the next major version of EasyBuild, is the trace output mode. So by default, EasyBuild will not tell you a lot of what's going on in the background. It will just give you lines like preparing or installing or building without actually showing you what's going on in the background. If you enable trace mode, you will get a lot more detail, but without it flooding your screen with lots of excess information. So when it does the prepare step, and when it's setting up the build environment, it will show you which modules are being loaded, for example. When it's doing actual installations, it will show you which command is being run and where the output of that command is being stored. So if you want to, you can tail that log file and see what that command is actually doing and how it's progressing. You will get timestamps as well, so you can check on things. If something is taking too long, you can quickly spot it. So this is very, very useful. And I definitely strongly encourage you to configure EasyBuild to always do this, because at least in my experience, it doesn't get in the way, it only helps. Now, another mode is the dry run mode. This is very different from trace, because this will actually just look at how EasyBuild would install something without actually doing it. So this will always run in a matter of seconds, because it's not actually installing anything. It will just show you the commands that would be run if EasyBuild does this installation. So if you use eb-x, you will get an answer as shown on the slide. So it will show you during the build step method which type of commands or which commands will be run and in which location. And for example, for the sanity check, it will tell you what EasyBuild will check for before declaring success on the installation. So this is very useful. It opens up the black box that people were, that people felt that EasyBuild was to them. So they didn't really know what was going on or what EasyBuild was going to do. With the eb-x option, you can actually get that information straight away and very quickly. So this is, I think, a very good idea if you're wondering what EasyBuild will do, or how a change to an EasyBlock or an easyconfig file will affect the installation. It's very easy to tell if this will actually be picked up or not. Then another key feature, and this was implemented relatively recently, is the support for customizing the functionality of EasyBuild with hooks. So throughout the EasyBuild code base, we do callbacks to hook Python functions if they are defined. And in these Python functions, which you can fully control yourself, you can do additional actions, you can run checks, or you can run additional shell commands. You can even manipulate internal data structures of EasyBuild to make changes to what EasyBuild would do by default. So this is relatively easy to use, and it's a very powerful feature because you can really change anything almost to what EasyBuild does by adding a small amount of Python code. So the example in the slide is shows you how you can customize the configure options for OpenAPI with a pre-configure hook. So you're basically telling EasyBuild, if you're installing OpenAPI and you have with verbs in the list of configure options, then you should replace that with without verbs instead, and then just continue with the installation as you would do normally. So yeah, this is a very easy way to customize EasyBuild and keep track of things in your own version control setup. Now, some sites are really using this quite extensively. There's a presentation at the last EasyBuild user meeting by the University of Brussels that show how they build OpenAPI and other API libraries for their heterogeneous setup, where they have a mix of different interconnects in their system. So they do lots of detection and tweaking of configure options there through their hooks. And then perhaps the most recent feature, big feature worth mentioning, is the richer output that EasyBuild can give you. So for this, we leverage the rich Python package. It's not a required dependency, but if it is installed, EasyBuild will use it to give more colorful output or to give progress bars whenever it's downloading files or running an installation. When it's installing extensions, which could be over 1,000, for example, for recent R easy configs, it will tell you how many extensions are done, how many are still left, how much time has been spent up until now on the installation, and so on. So this gives you a concise and a colorful overview of how EasyBuild is progressing. Now, and this is also something I strongly recommend. So all you need to do is to install the rich Python package with the same Python version as EasyBuild is using, and then this will be enabled automatically. Okay, so next to all the features that we have implemented over the years, a big part of EasyBuild is, of course, the software that is supported by EasyBuild. So what you can install with EasyBuild. This has been increasing over the years, of course, and we even see it increasing more quickly in the last couple of years. So we're adding about 400 extra software applications and libraries per year to EasyBuild, so what it can support. This does not include versions, so this is unique, different software projects. And this also doesn't include what we call extensions. So things like Python packages, R libraries are usually installed as extensions to something else. So those are not included in these counts. So very soon we're going to break the threshold of over 3,000 supported software packages. And if you would count extensions, you'll have to add over 2,000 to that count. So we're going to break the 5,000 mark there in terms of different supported software projects. Now there's a small decline there in the graph. So this is when we archived very old easy configs in EasyBuild 4.0, which were only using very old tool chains, and this is typically dead software that nobody is interested in anymore. So that's why we had a small decline there. And we're probably going to have a decline like this again in the next major version of EasyBuild. So overall, this is good. So we keep adding support for more software to EasyBuild, but it's also scary because this trend is not slowing down. So it seems like there's a bottomless pit of research software that we'll have to keep adding, and new packages keep coming up from new domains, things like bioinformatics, machine learning, AI. So new projects are being created probably every day, and I don't expect this effort to slow down anytime soon. Now, all of this software support doesn't come automatically, of course. This is This comes in through the contributions we get from the EasyBuild community and all the contributors that do a lot of hard work in opening pull requests and making sure those installations work and go through the fairly strict review process that we have before we include something in EasyBuild. So we're quite extensively testing contributions before we can actually merge them in. So we're currently seeing about 2,500 EasyConfig pull requests per year. So if you think about this per working day or something, that's over 10 pull requests per working day, which is quite a lot. And that's without the framework and easy block PRs that often go along with it as well. In the last decade, we have seen over 25,000 pull requests being opened to EasyBuild. So that's quite big. These pull requests were opened by over 375 different people over the years and over the different repositories. And per year, we're currently seeing well over 100 unique contributors. So 100 different people in 2020, 2021, and also this year, we've already broken our previous record in terms of unique people. So we're probably going to have over 120 unique contributors this year. Now, there was a big impact here by the GitHub integration feature, so the support for opening pull requests from the EasyBuild command line. This support was implemented because we were getting too many pull requests and they were not structured well enough. But we've probably shot ourselves in the foot there a bit by adding support to make it very easy to open pull requests. We've been getting way more pull requests than we were ever before. So you can see the support was implemented in 2016, and since then it has been increasing quite a bit. Now, this is mostly okay because the pull requests have way better structure, and also for the EasyBuild maintainers, it's way easier to process these pull requests. So even though we're getting a lot more, we're still quite happy with the GitHub integration that we have. Yeah, and all these contributions are reviewed by EasyBuild maintainers. So in 2016, we were starting to get too many contributions for just the HPC-UGent team to handle. So we started asking for help by experienced EasyBuild, experienced users of EasyBuild and people who were very active in helping with already maybe reviewing pull requests or testing pull requests. So we started to reach out to some people and see if they would be up for helping out with processing contributions on a voluntary basis. So to be clear, nobody is really being paid to do this. So they're doing it as a part of their job, their regular job, and they're just trying to find some time left and right, some hours in the week to help out with reviewing pull requests and getting them tested and merged. We also have a rotating, what we call maintainer of the week role. We actually have two. So two maintainers are responsible for looking into incoming issues and pull requests that week. And this is also on a best effort basis. So the guideline is sort of to try to spend 1 hour per day that week to look at stuff that's incoming. And yeah, whether they hit that hour or not, or spend more time, that's absolutely fine. So they just do what they can. Last year, we also had the first EasyBuild Maintainer Summit. So we're all, or as much as possible, EasyBuild maintainers were getting together to discuss on the short term which changes should be implemented in EasyBuild, how we can more efficiently process contributions, and so on. We haven't planned the next maintainer summit yet, but we probably should sometime in the coming weeks or months. So the EasyBuild maintainers have been very, very important to EasyBuild. Without them, there's absolutely no way that EasyBuild would be in the current state that it is. So whenever you get the chance to thank an EasyBuild maintainer, if you run into them, if you know them, please buy them a coffee, please buy them a beer, or thank them in some other way. So whenever you get the chance to do so, please do. Then there's a couple of things that we, or certainly I, have learned over the years. Like I mentioned, we had pretty much zero experience with releasing software in the wild or doing open source software development. So these are a couple of things that come to mind that we've learned over the years. So first of all, and I've mentioned this multiple times, if you want to release open source software, and you think that's a good idea, maybe it is, but be careful, because if you start a community, then things will explode quite a bit. And you'll have to somehow deal with that. And you can find multiple stories by people that have burned out because they released some software out in the wild and it became somewhat popular. So you may want to think about what you're going to do if that happens. So we were also not prepared with this, but somehow we found a way to deal with it by asking for help in time, implementing features that make it easier to deal with incoming contributions, and so on. So we're still quite busy, but I think we're more or less keeping up, and we're spreading the load well enough that we can keep doing that. In terms of promoting your project, the best way, the absolute best way to do so is word of mouth. So if you would like to get others to use your project, give talks about it at every possible opportunity in different ways, podcasts, classical presentations, giving demos. So everything you can do to show people the value of your work is something you will have to do. So even then, even if you're doing this for over a decade like we have, we still run into people every now and then which are in the HPC or the computational science community who have never heard about your tool before. So this will keep happening no matter how many talks you give or how many promotion you do. So people will still be surprised and still tell you, why didn't I know about this, even though you've been screaming from the rooftops for 10 years. And even if they have heard about your project, it doesn't mean they've actually tried it or they are convinced to really spend the time to start learning to use it. So people really have to be convinced before they start using your project. And the best way to do them is to somehow getting them to try it hands-on themselves. Even if it's only for 15 or 30 minutes, let them try it, let them play with it, and let them be amazed about what it can do and how much time it can save them. Also, making clear to people what your tool is actually doing is not easy. So they may have some high-level idea, or they may say, "Oh, this is just like Gentoo prefix does," and then why should I take a closer look at it? And of course, when they look underneath the covers or when they start playing with it themselves, they realize there's more to it, or there's a different aspect to it that was not immediately clear. So that's also something that's very difficult to get across. If you're implementing new features, very often they will get overlooked, maybe because you didn't make enough noise about them, or maybe the documentation is not there or not detailed enough. So you'll have to keep pointing out these features over and over again when people ask questions, and you shouldn't be surprised by that. So it's very easy to overlook that you're developing with this tool every day or using it every day, while other people are maybe only using it once or twice a week. And then, of course, they are going to overlook features or not know about recent developments. Also, about incoming contributions, we've seen this multiple times, that somebody comes up with a very small pull request initially, and it's very important that you try to help them or try to explain them what they need to know to get that pull request in, because these people may grow out to be really good contributors, really frequent contributors, or people who have skills that you're currently missing in your contributor pool. So there are examples where people are fixing bugs in GCC or complex libraries like OpenBLAS, and they're only still around in the project because we were very welcoming to them initially. And if we wouldn't have been, they would have probably walked away, and we would have missed out on getting all that experience into the project. And also the experience and the skills you have yourself, and Git and GitHub definitely comes to mind here. Also, don't take this for granted. So many people are not familiar with things like this yet, and maybe do want to make contributions, but you'll have to be patient, or you have to be helpful to get them to the point where they can make the contribution that they want to do. So this is also something that's very important, and something that reflects as well in the GitHub integration that we have, where we're trying to get rid of that hurdle. All right, so that was the last decade. So since today, we're starting a new decade for EasyBuild. The project has grown quite a lot in the last 10 years, and hopefully it will continue to do that in the next 10 years. It's impossible to tell whether this will happen or which roadblocks we will hit. But I think we have figured out a pretty good approach by now on how to deal with contributions and how to get a project of this size to keep it on the rails. One thing we've never been really good at, and I guess the lack of dedicated funding for the project is definitely part of that, is that we're not very good at setting a clear roadmap. So things we want to implement by a certain time, or that we want to change or support. We've never been able to set a very strict timeline to that. We could make promises like by the end of next year we'll do this or that, but it's probably very unlikely that we'll stick to those promises. So there's no point in making them. So long-term planning is very difficult, at least today. We do have short-term plans. So in the next months, weeks, months, and let's say next year, there are a couple of things that we will be doing or are actively working on already. One of these things is porting the EasyBuild documentation to Markdown, and I'll have a separate slide on that coming up. Then the next EasyBuild release is probably going to be 4.7. So this is, let's say, weeks away, maybe by the end of the month. That should be there, depending on whether we're hitting any issues or want to get in a particular feature before we do so. We're also starting to think about the release of EasyBuild 5.0, so the next major version of EasyBuild, and have some more specifics on that as well. And of course, the next EasyBuild user meeting is something that we're actively discussing on when that will happen and where it will happen. In the longer term, we have lots of ideas, small and big, but one thing we should definitely spend some time on is significantly improving the error reporting that EasyBuild currently does. So whenever an installation fails, EasyBuild does keep track of all the information. The build error is going to be somewhere in the build log, or maybe in a separate file in the build directory. But I think that EasyBuild can do a lot better job in catching those actual build errors or pointing out where they are, and maybe even make some suggestions on how to fix them. And then another long-term project is making Easy production ready, and I'll explain a bit more about Easy as well. So the first thing that we're currently very actively working on, and that's an effort that has only started a couple of weeks ago, is improving the EasyBuild documentation. And the main thing we're doing here is porting what we have currently, which is in restructured text and rendered with Sphinx, is we're moving this to Markdown and MKDocs. So in my experience, MKDocs is a way better tool than Sphinx is for writing documentation. It lowers the bar to making changes to the documentation quite a bit. The Markdown syntax is also the same syntax that we're using in GitHub issues or GitHub wiki pages, GitHub pull requests. So the jump to that format is a lot smaller than it is to RST. And yeah, the current format is really holding us back in different ways. So we're currently not maintaining the documentation well. And I think part of that is because of the format. So we're moving away from that, and hopefully that will help. The first part of this effort is really porting to the new format without really reviewing the contents of the documentation. But in a later stage, once all the porting is done, we also hope to set up some kind of review cycle, like one page every week or something, where we look at that page in detail and see if there's any updates needed or if it's still accurate for the current EasyBuild versions. With MKDocs, you can very easily get a local preview of the documentation while you're editing it. So as soon as you hit save in Vim or Emacs or whatever editor you're using, the rendered documentation will automatically refresh, and that's really helpful when writing documentation. You can see how it will actually look. And also when the documentation is rendered with MKDocs, the search feature that MKDocs provides is also way more powerful, way more instant. As soon as you start typing something, you'll get instant results and better search results as well, in my experience, which is also is very welcome. So all of this effort is being done in a separate repository. We're pulling out the EasyBuild documentation from the EasyBuild repository into a separate EasyBuild docs repository. And one thing we are doing and are trying very hard is to make sure that existing links for docs.easybuild.io will not get broken. So even though we're going to move everything to a new format and the new documentation will have a slightly different structure, the existing links that you'll find in emails or God knows what should keep working. And for this ongoing effort, I would also like to thank Simon and James, who have been spending quite a bit of time on this in the last 2 weeks, and will hopefully continue to do so. But anyone who's willing to help out with this effort, either by looking at what has been ported already or by actively helping out with porting what still needs to be ported, is very welcome. So for this, please take a look at the EasyBuild docs repository, where there are some clear instructions in the README file on how to get started. Then looking ahead a couple of months, let's say, is we're starting to think about the release of EasyBuild 5.0. So this effort has not started yet, really, at least not the implementation part of it. But we do have a pretty good view on what should happen by then, or what breaking changes we will make in EasyBuild 5.0. The biggest one, which is hopefully going to be of low impact, is dropping the support for running EasyBuild on top of Python 2.7. So Python 2.7 is end of life since January 1st, 2020, which is now almost 3 years ago. So we think it's time to pull the plug on the support of Python 2.7 in EasyBuild, at least in terms of running EasyBuild on top of Python 2.7. And hopefully the impact of this will be very small or non-existent. Just like in EasyBuild 4.0, we're also going to archive the ancient EasyConfig, so anything using an old toolchain, and that's anything using GCC older than 8.0 or a common toolchain version older than 2019A, is going to be moved into an archive. So it's going to stay in EasyBuild, but we're not going to test it anymore, and you should expect that it's going to be broken quite soon. And then this is maybe going to be the biggest change in terms of impact, is changing some defaults in the Python package EasyBlock, where we're going to enable the use of pip, and the running of pip check and the sanity check will enable those by default. So that's the biggest backwards incompatible changes. There may be additional ones, but they're probably going to be small, and the impact of those is going to be limited. And in any case, we'll have very clear documentation of what has changed and how you can mitigate those changes if you are affected by them. Other major changes which we have in mind, which may only be implemented with EasyBuild 5.0, but may also happen earlier, because we think we can do these without breaking backwards compatibility, is a new function, a cleaner function to run shell commands. So the current run command function, that API is quite cryptic, I would say. You can do things like not fail when the shell command fails, or get the standard out and standard error separately, if you know how to do so. But it's very unclear how to do that with the current API. So we're going to implement a new function for this with a cleaner API. We have lots of examples, lots of experience on how to run shell commands. So we can probably now design a better function for this. And also with some new capabilities. So there are ideas when a shell command fails, for example, that EasyBuild can drop you into an interactive shell, and then you can start figuring out why that command failed in the build environment that EasyBuild was running it in. So this could be very helpful. So one thing we will also do is basically copy the code of the loose version class, which is now part of the Python standard library. We're going to copy this into EasyBuild, because we're using it heavily throughout EasyBuild, both in EasyBuild Framework and EasyBlocks. And yeah, we basically have to either copy it or do something else, because this is disappearing in the Python standard library. And we want to be ready for this, so we can keep supporting the future versions of EasyBuild, of Python 3 as well. There's several other ideas here, which are listed on the wiki page, mentioned on top of this slide. Most of which will still need to be discussed among the EasyBuild maintainers. But also, if you have any additional suggestions or ideas for breaking changes that you think should happen in the next major EasyBuild version, now is a good time to raise them. So open an issue in GitHub or mention them on Slack or on the mailing list, because now is a good time to do so. We don't do major versions of EasyBuild quite often, and we're quite careful with making breaking changes. So if there's something that you think really should happen, then now is the time to bring it up. Then this is again longer term, I guess, beyond next year and in the years to come. We see a bunch of challenges here for EasyBuild. So as you probably have noticed, the landscape of computational science is changing in various ways and changing quite fast. So the explosion in available software projects that are relevant for researchers has already been happening quite a while. And that's why that line of supported software keeps going up for EasyBuild. There's more additional domains. People are being pressured a bit more to publish their code, and then other people are picking up on it. And there's also wider adoption of HPC in general, like GPUs, for example. So all of this has an effect on the software that researchers are using. There's also increasing interest in using the cloud, AWS, Azure, so all these commercial clouds, or even private cloud setups are being used more and more. And this also has an impact on how software is being installed. So I think one thing we want to enable here is that people don't sacrifice performance when they're using these platforms, but they can still run binaries that are properly optimized for the hardware on which they are going to run. And this is typically what doesn't happen with containers and Conda. So there people are sacrificing performance because they want to be able to run anywhere. And in our view, that doesn't really make sense. And I think we can avoid this. What's also definitely happening is an increasing variety in processor microarchitectures. So in the last decade, certainly until a couple of years ago, Intel was still king in HPC. Basically, every HPC cluster had Intel processors. This is changing fast. In the last couple of years, AMD is back in the game, which is already a bit of a head scratcher in terms of compilers and compiler toolchains that you're using and compiler options as well. But then also we see ARM coming quite rapidly. There's already lots of HPC sets that have an ARM cluster, and this is only going to increase probably in the future because it's going to be, in terms of price performance, way too attractive, and it's going to be impossible to ignore. Power is still there, but it's pretty niche, and this is probably a dying breed in HPC. But we do have the RISC-V CPUs, the open source CPUs, if you will, which are coming quite fast as well. So the very capable RISC-V CPUs are being actively designed and will be on the market quite soon. And there's a lot of Euro HPC money going into the design and the research on this. So in the next couple of years, this will be something else to worry about. And then next to the CPUs, there's lots of diversity in GPUs as well. Next to NVIDIA, there's AMD GPUs, there's Intel GPUs, and even beyond that, other accelerators like TPUs and IPUs and God knows what. So this is, yeah, we're going back to a way diverse system stack, and of course, this will directly affect building software for all of these variations. And then also what you see is a big shift towards Clang-based compilers. So the new Intel One API, the AMD compilers are all based on Clang. So in some sense, that's more uniform, but all of these have small variations as well. And that's definitely going to be a headache to deal with too. So these are all things that, whether we like it or not, we will have to worry about. We will have to somehow take into account into the EasyBuild project as well. Now, one thing that we are already working on and to mitigate some of these problems is the EASY project. So the EASY project somehow evolved from the EasyBuild community to some extent. So EASY here stands for the European Environment for Scientific Software Installations. And if you're wondering whether this is gamed, so we can spell it easy, yes, it is. So that's not an accident. What we want to do here is to build a central stack of optimized scientific software installation. So like you are currently installing your software on an NFS mount inside your cluster, we want to give you a file system that you can just mount on your system and that has all the software already pre-installed and properly optimized for your hardware. So we know how to do this. We're following the lead of what Compute Canada is doing there with CVMFS and having a compatibility layer and all these things. And we want to make this a community project that basically grows from EasyBuild. But this is not going to replace EasyBuild. We're using EasyBuild as one of the tools in here to make this possible. So this is still, even though it's a project that started in 2020, it's still in the early stages. We have a proof of concept setup, which we call our pilot repository, which is publicly available. So you can get started with playing with that straight away if you follow our documentation. And we have a long paper, an open access paper, where we explain these ideas and how we can build this up in detail. And this is a high-level overview of the project. I'm not going to try and explain this in detail because there's a lot going on here. And as you can see from the logos, there's a lot of open source projects involved in here, from CVMFS to Gentoo to LMAT and EasyBuild, and special libraries like Archspec. We're using Singularity or Aptainer to build these software installations. And of course, this is heavily inspired by what Compute Canada has done for their software stack. What we are doing here is we're from the ground up taking into account that we have an increasing variety in types of CPUs, Intel, AMD, ARM, and also RISC-V in the future. We hope to support all of these and also the different generations of these. So different generations of Intel CPUs will provide separate software installations for, so they are properly optimized. The core idea here is that you as a researcher can basically go from zero to running your scientific workloads in 3 easy steps. The first step is getting access to the Easy repository. So for this, at least currently, you'll have to install CVMFS. This requires admin privileges, so it's not for everyone. But if a sysadmin is willing to do that and doing some minor configuration, they can get all their users access to Easy. If you don't have admin privileges, you can use a container that includes CVMFS itself. And basically, at least inside that container and single node, you can very easily play with Easy straight away, as long as you have Singularity or Aptainer installed. Then once you do get the access, you source the init script, which is shown in step 2 here in the example below. And that's enough to start playing with all the software that we provide in Easy. So then you can start running GROMACS or OpenFOAM or TensorFlow, whatever. And the init script is smart enough that it will detect what type of CPU you have, whether it's an Intel Skylake or an AMD Rome or a RISC-V or whatever variation. It will pick the right part of the software stack so you get optimized installations for this. So I really recommend people playing with this. So go to our documentation, check the pilot section, and clone our Easy demo GitHub repository where you get a couple of scripts to play with. So a small TensorFlow and OpenFOAM workload to see how this works. And hopefully you will learn a lot more about Easy, because one thing I didn't mention here is that we have some Euro HPC funding through the multi-xScale project. And a big part of this is making Easy ready for production and making it grow in terms of supported software and platforms. But that's going to start, that work is going to start early 2023 and is going to run for 4 years. So we think we can get a lot of stuff done in those 4 years. All right. And then we're ready to wrap up the presentation. I did promise a small surprise. So we've been playing with EasyBuild for over a decade now. And yeah, sometimes you have to make some changes to a project. Sometimes it's time for some refreshing. And one of the aspects of EasyBuild is definitely up for a refresh. We've been quite happy with this aspect for now, but we're very aware, and I think everyone will agree, that it can improve a lot. We did try to make it an evolution of what was there before. And hopefully it looks a bit more professional. And maybe it will cause some confusion initially, but hopefully not too much. But I think it will grow on us eventually. So I'll wrap up the presentation with the new EasyBuild logo that we've created, which I think looks a bit more professional. And hopefully people see it as a way forward and an evolution of what was there before. And with that, I'll wrap up the presentation here. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them. So if you have any questions, maybe raise your hand in Zoom or post them in Slack, and then hopefully Simon can keep an eye on those. and raise them. Or if nobody has questions as well, that's fine. Yeah, we do see a question. Jed, go ahead. You can unmute now.
Yeah. Hi, Kenneth. Thanks for the presentation, and thank you and the rest of the community for developing EasyBuild. And I'm more of a user than a contributor, although I do have done quite a lot of my own EBs over the years. One of the things that I suffer with or struggle from is oftentimes I want to update one software package that has a long dependency chain. I have to go back and update a lot of EasyBuild scripts.
Easy configs, yeah.
Easy configs, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's straightforward. Sometimes you can use the try function, but sometimes it doesn't really work very well. And yeah, for example, when you want to just update to a newer compiler, to a newer tool chain, then that can really be a massive time suck. You know, you have some software that has a lot of dependencies, like GDAL. I do a lot of GIS on HPC, and then yeah, so something like that has a lot of dependencies, and then you end up spending a day or more updating easy configs. And I know that maybe there's no sort of easy way to make it easier. But that I would say that's the only, and they're probably still the easiest thing. That's probably still the easiest way to do it compared to any other method for maintaining software on my cluster. But still, it seems like it takes a lot of time. I don't know. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there as kind of thing I do. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, there are a couple of things here that I think could help. So you've mentioned try, but do you mostly do try toolchain, or are you also using try update depths, for example? So the try update depths method is, and maybe you've muted again, but the try update depths method is fairly new and is an experimental feature. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it does help a lot.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and actually I didn't know about that, so I will try. That's a good And so so just a question on that: if you do a try like that, does it create a new easy config that you could then you put in a PR?
Yes, when you do a try, you can actually, well, if you do a try, it will actually try the installation as well. If that's successful, you get the easy config file in the installation directory. But you can combine try with copy EC. So that's also -- copy EC is just to copy an easy config file to somewhere. So the try will generate the easy config file, and the copy EC will just copy it, and that way you're not trying to do the installation. When you combine try toolchain with try update depths, it will not generate one easy config file, but multiple ones. So all the ones that it needs for the dependencies, and I think it will either pick up new easy configs that are already there, and if not, it will just assume it will have to use the same software version for the dependency that was already there. But at least that gives you a stack of easy config files to start from, to try with a new compiler toolchain, and then see what breaks and what doesn't.
Yeah, and so I will try more with try.
That's one thing. There's another thing which is currently not there yet, but which has been brought up recently. Is usually what EasyBuild does is when it's installing a whole bunch of things and one of them fails, it just gives up there straight away. And it doesn't continue with other things that it could be still trying to install. So it basically stops at the first breaking dependency. We could have a mode there that tells EasyBuild just keep trying, and all the easy configs you find, try installing them until you've gone through all of them. And a lot of them will probably fail because of a missing dependency, but then others may not, and it can try and install everything that it can. And at least that way you have a more complete view on what is working and what doesn't. That would already be helpful. And there was something else. Oh yeah, there's some kind of an alternative to try as well, which is a feature that was started but never finished, which is maybe a bit more intelligent as well. And there's, I think, an open pull requesting framework there that we should pop up again, where you get a bit more fine-grained control over how EasyBuild is generating a new EasyConfig file based on an existing one. And that's probably a feature we should pick up again and see if we can get that a bit more mature and get into EasyBuild and maybe an experimental implementation. Yeah.
Great.
So yeah,
thank you.
It's great feedback, and I agree. This is one of the key pain points currently. But like you said, there's probably no magic bullet here, so no easy solution. But there are some things we can do to make it a bit less painful.
The one other thing, while I'm still not muted, I just would also say that the documentation is helpful, but needs more examples. And I'm always thinking like, yeah, that's probably one thing where I could maybe try and contribute myself some stuff, because you can learn a lot just by seeing how somebody already did something. And so having more examples in the documentation would be great.
Yeah, any contributions there are definitely welcome, or just ideas of where we could add examples. I'm not sure, have you looked at the EasyBuild tutorial at all? Because there we do try to have some examples and even exercises with solutions along with them.
Yeah, so not in a long time. Yeah, I could go back and have a look at that.
Yeah, because I think that has improved a lot. Like the tutorial we did at ISC 22, at least goes through the basics. We have a separate version which was done for the Lumi support team, which also covers more advanced features like hooks, and has some very clear examples and even exercises on playing with these features. And there we probably need to merge the tutorial and the documentation a bit more, or at least, get things a bit more organized and structured so people don't miss and don't overlook these things.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Right. Great feedback. Thanks a lot. Okay, York, I think you're next.
Yeah, thanks. Two things. First of all, a big thank you for making EasyBuild. It definitely makes my life easier. And also a very big thank you for all the help I received over the years with my sometimes probably trivial, but I didn't understand it problems. And sometimes they are like, okay, that is an issue now. Please raise an issue. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. And it cannot be said too often. Thank you. One question I'm having is, you mentioned IPUs and TPUs. Do we actually have access to these hardware?
I currently don't. I know these things are around there. I personally don't have a lot of experience in playing with these. I hope it's just installing another library and then this thing knows how to talk to this special purpose hardware, but I have no idea how these things work.
That makes two of us. I was trying to get my fingers into IPU at the previous workplace. Then, of course, I've moved, and the PI I was talking to then became a parent, and so things were a little bit stalled. But I still have contact to the company. So I'm going to see them in December at the conference. So if you like, I can ask them if they would be interested in supporting us here.
Yeah, getting access to the hardware is only a small part of it, right? So having a need to actually play with that hardware is another thing. And then having time to actually develop what needs to be developed to support this is yet something else. But yeah, I guess getting access to additional hardware doesn't help, at least to play around or to see if there's easy changes we could make in EasyBuild. Like for RISC-V, there's very minimal support for RISC-V currently in EasyBuild. By getting some access to emulated setups and things like this, but that's already helpful to maybe help other people to get started on that. So there's, I think, a couple of easy things we could do if you know where to look into or where to make changes that could help others to start playing with these things. And yeah, anything we can do there, I think makes sense.
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit more in terms of collaboration, because they are porting hardware. They are porting software. I can't promise anything, but I can ask, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, that could be interesting, just to see what these things look like, or what kind of work would be needed in EasyBuild to support them. Well, just knowing that would already be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, my crazy idea is, and I've got plenty of them. My crazy idea is if I can convince them that using EasyBuild would make their life easier as well, and they can see a benefit here selling it to customers, I think that would be a win-win situation for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a crazy idea. I mean, it could well be they say, no, thank you, no.
There's a lot of things in EasyBuild that has started out as crazy ideas, and now everybody's using them. So I think the GitHub integration is a good example. Like I haven't seen a feature like this anywhere else, I think, but for EasyBuild that has made a really big impact. So yeah, sometimes crazy ideas are good.
Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot.
All right, next question, Satish. Yeah, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, hello.
Hi, I just had a question regarding the EasyBuild framework itself. So the framework has a lot of features, a lot of variables are used, a lot of functions are used within the framework itself, and to write some sort of easy block. Typically, so this is a bit more involved. So it's not just easy configs, right? So writing easy blocks to make it easier, or to make I typically found that there is less documentation regarding the framework itself. Rather, so I would have to search for a little bit newer easy blocks or compare them with some other easy blocks which were either written by you or someone else, just to know what was changed in the framework, or if there was a major change in the functions, or even something just as simple as, like, say, loose version or something like that. So is there going to be, so you've already shown that there's going to be a new place where the documentation is going to be. Is this also going to be addressed over there?
That we can definitely do that. So we already have documentation on writing easy blocks from scratch with examples even. So in the EasyBuild tutorial, but I think it's only in the Lumi version. There is a separate part in the tutorial that explains how to implement an easy block, and it gives you a dummy software package to write an easy block for. And it tries to guide you to doing that essentially from scratch. Now, that's a pretty basic easy block. It's not something very advanced, but this could be a good step. And another thing is, we can definitely add some more documentation on the EasyBuild framework itself, like what kind of functionality is in there that could be useful for easy blocks, because not everything is, or having separate subsections on, if you want to do something like this in an easy block, what kind of functions are available, or what kind of approach could you take with what framework supports today. Like running an interactive command, for example, something that needs a Q&A kind of thing. That's one example. How does that work currently? If you need to do something different depending on the software version that's being installed, how would you do this? So I think some very small examples, also coming back to what Jet mentioned, there we can definitely do a better job in the documentation. Yeah. And yeah, this is welcome in any form of the documentation, also in the current one. But I think after the porting to Markdown, this will become a lot easier to start adding things like this. Also because the EasyBuild tutorial is now written in Markdown, so the crossing things between the documentation and the tutorials is going to become a lot easier once they use the same format.
Okay, and also some sort of like an index pointing towards all the let's say functions. It may not be like a detailed index, but just to see what sort of functions go in some, because typically we can see these kind of things in a Doxygen kind of a framework, where you see the function, the inputs that go into it, and hopefully the output that comes out of the function on kind of documentation. So since the framework itself has a lot of these, maybe some sort of an index will be also helpful. I think it's just a suggestion.
And in the current documentation, we already have an API section. So if you go to the docs.easybuild.io and you look for API, there's a link there that has an overview of all the functions. But searching through that is currently, I think, a small nightmare. And that is something that we'll definitely keep an eye on for the new documentation, that the search functionality is a lot better in MKDocs. And we're going to make sure that when searching for things that you should hit in the API part of the documentation, which is something we still need to figure out, we're going to try and make sure that you're getting decent search results there. So if you look for a function to read a file, for example, that you can very easily find it through the search box.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's definitely something we'll keep an eye out for when wrapping up the porting efforts.
Yeah.
And
Thank you very
just
much.
yeah, just to echo something, I'm not sure if Alex is in the call here, but Alex, one of the EasyBuild maintainers, has asked for a more advanced EasyBuild tutorial working through the framework from the ground up. So what is there, how is it structured, and how do you make changes to framework, but also how can you leverage framework as best as possible. That's probably something we should create a dedicated, more advanced tutorial for. And this would be, I think, very useful as well for people who write easy blocks.
Okay.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll find some time for that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Pablo.
Hi, Kenneth. My question is not directly related to EasyBuild, but to Easy.
Okay.
Is like what do you think is missing to consider Easy production ready, or what are the main?
That's a good question. The main thing that's missing is manpower. So and that's actually a solved problem now because we have funding. So starting January 1st next year, the multi-xScale Euro HPC project will start. And a big part of that project is providing a software service like Easy does. So we're basically going to make Easy mature in there. We'll have a couple of full-time people working on this, on just the service side of the project. So 4 or 5 full-time people for 4 years. And that's mostly people who are already active in the Easy project. So that's very good, who are already know what needs to be done and already agree on how it should be done. So I think in the first, let's say, 6 months to a year into that project, we should be able to make Easy really production ready. What that involves is a couple of things. We have to change our CVMFS setup a bit. So it's set up in a more secure way. We have some dedicated monitoring for it. So if something goes wrong, we know it quickly enough. We'll set up some kind of rotating support role. So if something goes wrong, there's always somebody around to try and mitigate those problems and fix them. Basically, like you would do with any production setup. And another big part of that is before we want to make it production, we want to automate the way in which software is being added into Easy. So right now we're using EasyBuild for that, but we're manually setting up the build environment with a container and then running EasyBuild in that environment, letting it do the installation. Then we make a tarball of the installation, we upload it somewhere, and then it gets ingested. And all of these is too manual work. So humans are doing this, shuffling this tarball around and setting up this build container. And we're creating a bot that does this automatically for us on the different types of CPUs. So that automates the whole process. That's first. So the humans don't have to do it anymore. And it also opens the door for people outside of the project to open a pull request and say, I want to add, let's say, Bowtie into Easy. And all they do is to add a line with the Bowtie version and the toolchain that should be used into a file. They open a pull request for that. And then the bot says, OK, I know what this means. I will go ahead and build this on the different CPU targets. And then if a human tells me to deploy, I will deploy it into Easy. So we're basically doing the same thing like we do with Easy Configs, but then to actually deploy something into Easy. And that's an effort that's already ongoing. And I think we're quite close to finishing that. Maybe that will still be finished this year. And that's another, let's say, requirement before we can make Easy production. So we have a very good view on what needs to be done. We know how to do it. We don't have the time yet to really do it the way we want to, but early next year, we should have the time to do that. So hopefully by, let's say, summer or definitely the end of next year, things will look very different for Easy and you'll be able to rely on it way better than currently. Yeah, and maybe Alan has something to add here.
Yeah, just to mention, I mean, there's some technical stuff as well, right? So we have GPU support in the works for the CUDA stuff. Also, we've been considering how to deal with MPI implementations at different sites. So some people have vendor MPIs, right, that they have to use. There are potential solutions here, but they need work, right? So I've worked on something called MPI Trampoline a bit to try and use that, which looks really positive for C and C++, but is problematic with Fortran. So basically that just gives you the same kind of approach as FlexiBlast. It just gives you the standard, and then you can have whatever is behind the standard and use that, any implementation. But there are limitations there, and maybe we can get around them. So I again had contact with that developer last week, but it's probably this kind of things that are also in the way of adopting at a particular site. But if you're already using OpenMPI, you're in a pretty good place, I would say, with what's there.
Yeah, and you'll definitely hear more about this, Pablo, when next year, when we think Easy is ready for production, we will be very, very vocal about it, and you'll definitely hear about it. Yeah, so keep an eye on it. Let's say keep an eye on the Easy Slack and maybe the Easy Twitter account, and yeah, we'll probably hear about it in the EasyBuild mailing list or Slack as well. But we can unmute you again if you have something else. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say thank you, and that maybe, in my opinion, maybe it will make sense to make it, once the infrastructure part is in place, which I think is one of the main pieces. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's just my opinion. Maybe I'm missing information because I'm not very involved in the project, but maybe it would make sense to make it available for people, even if not the full GPU support is there and not full MPI support is there, because, you know, until you don't open to real end users, you need the feedback from the user. It's just my view. So maybe it's...
And that's definitely what we're going to do. And that's also why we have the pilot repository already there, which has some things like bioconductor and things like this. So things that we know work are already there. You can already play with these. And that kind of structure or the way you use it is not going to change much once we switch to the production setup. And maybe something interesting for you, there was a biohackathon last week in Paris, where somebody from SIB, actually, Sebastian Moretti, was adding a bioinformatics pipeline to Easy. We're hitting some small issues there, mainly on ARM, but on x86, Intel and AMD, it's basically just working. And we're now very close to ingesting all of these installations into Easy as well. And then, especially, I think for you and your users, there's stuff in there that they can very easily play with, and you can see whether they like it or where they hit any roadblocks.
Okay, thank you.
So
I will probably try to give it a try. Just to let you know, I'm trying to push Easy across because we have a project to collaborate across different Swiss facilities. And well, my view on that is that we should help on Easy. Yeah, so but for us, the main point will be once the contribution part is ready. So we can really contribute to Easy. Mm-hmm. And of course, I can only speak for myself, and I am not a manager, but from our side, from my side, I will try to push our teams to contribute as much as possible.
Sounds good. And I think we're very close to opening up that contribution workflow and having documentation on it and being able to provide help on it when people are playing with that. Yeah. All right.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay. Do we have any questions in Slack, Simon, or are we good to wrap up?
I think we're okay. There's been some talk, but I don't think there are specific questions.
Okay, then unless somebody else has a question here, I think we can wrap up. Thank you very much, everyone, and don't forget to have a beverage of your choice to celebrate the start of the next decade of EasyBuild. Thanks a lot. See you around.
Bye-bye.